Imagine you're sailing across a vast ocean with the golden hues of a sunset painting the sky. Suddenly, a storm begins to brew, and the calm waters turn rough. It's in these times of turmoil and uncertainty that we can find ourselves feeling lost. But it's also during these moments that we can find hope. The Bible reminds us that even in our darkest hours, God is at work orchestrating His perfect plan. He is our refuge and strength, as stated in Psalm 46 verse 1. The storms of life often test our faith and patience. When faced with unexpected hardships, many of us struggle with uncertainty, wondering if we will ever reach calmer waters. However, the Bible offers us hope and reassurance that, despite the challenges we face, God is working behind the scenes to bring about His perfect plan. Let's continue to explore the 7 essential truths that help us put our trust in God during tough times. How we can trust in God and find solace in His timing. Consider these 7 essential truths. 1. God's timing is perfect. Much like a farmer who plants seeds and waits for them to grow, we must trust in God's timing. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 reminds us that there's a season for everything. The story of Zacchaeus, a tax collector who climbed a tree to see Jesus, is a testament to God's perfect timing and how it can lead to personal transformation. God's timing is impeccable, even when it doesn't align with our expectations. The story of Joseph from the book of Genesis is a powerful example. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and unjustly imprisoned, but through his trials, he maintained faith that God had a greater purpose for him. His journey, which spanned years of struggle, culminated in his rise to a position of great authority, proving that God's timing is often beyond our comprehension, but always for our good. We must remember that God's timing is perfect. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 assures us that to everything there is a season, whether it's a season of growth, a season of pruning, or a season of rest. God knows exactly when each should occur. Zacchaeus, who climbed the sycamore tree to see Jesus, learned this when Jesus chose to visit his house, transforming his life and heart. 2. God's strength in our weakness. In our weakest moments, when we feel most vulnerable, God's strength is most evident. The Apostle Paul understood this, famously writing in 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9 that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. This is a profound truth that we must embrace when we feel overwhelmed. When we feel inadequate or powerless, His grace is at work, often in ways we don't recognize. The story of King Jehu from 2 Kings 9 and 10 illustrates how God uses unlikely leaders to fulfill His plan. Consider the story of King Jehu, who was not the most obvious choice for leadership, yet God chose him to fulfill a critical role in Israel's history. Despite his lack of traditional qualifications, Jehu's obedience to God demonstrated that when we trust in God's strength, we can achieve great things. 3. Trust in God's greater plan. Life's path can be uncertain, but Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us to trust in the Lord and lean not on our understanding. The blind man Bartimaeus from the Gospel of Mark, who believed in Jesus' power to heal him, illustrates the incredible power of faith and the certainty of God's greater plan. The Bible calls us to trust in God's plan, even when it seems mysterious or unclear. Proverbs 3 verse 5-6 advises us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and not to lean on your own understanding. This means acknowledging that our perspective is limited while God's understanding is infinite. When we trust in God's plan, we open ourselves to the amazing ways He can work in our lives. Bartimaeus, the blind man from the Gospel of Mark, displayed immense faith when he called out to Jesus for healing, despite the crowd's attempts to silence him. His trust in God's power led to his miraculous healing, illustrating the transformative power of faith. 4. Endurance through tough times. Endurance is key to trusting God's timing and plan. The story of Jonah teaches us that sometimes God's plan involves challenging situations, but these experiences shape us and help fulfill His purpose. Jonah's journey was filled with resistance and reluctance, yet even in the belly of the great fish, he had to learn endurance and trust in God's sovereignty. Endurance also means keeping faith even when the road ahead is uncertain. We must remember that God is with us during our struggles, providing strength and guidance. Isaiah 41 verse 10 reminds us not to fear, because God is with us, promising to strengthen and uphold us with His righteous right hand. Jonah's story reminds us that endurance means going through tough situations while trusting in God's plan. Even in the belly of a great fish, Jonah had to learn to endure and rely on God, ultimately fulfilling God's purpose. 5. Finding peace through prayer. Prayer is a powerful tool that connects us to God's peace. Philippians 4 verse 6 to 7 encourages us not to be anxious, but to present our requests to God through prayer with thanksgiving. This brings us the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding. In times of trouble, prayer helps us find calmness, reassurance, and clarity. 6. The joy of surrender. Surrendering to God is not about giving up, it's about giving over control, trusting that God knows the best path for us. Jesus invites us to find rest in Him in Matthew 11 verse 28 to 30, emphasizing that His yoke is easy and His burden is light. Surrender allows us to experience God's guidance and freedom from the burdens of trying to control every aspect of our lives. 7. Faith in God's faithfulness. God's faithfulness is evident throughout the Bible, from the story of Mephibosheth, who felt overlooked, to Rahab, the unlikely hero whose act of courage transformed her legacy. God's faithfulness reminds us that He is working even when we can't see it. Finally, God's faithfulness is unwavering. The story of Mephibosheth, who felt overlooked and forgotten, reminds us that God's faithfulness does not depend on our circumstances. Mephibosheth's life changed dramatically when King David honored his covenant with Jonathan, illustrating that God's faithfulness remains constant, even when we feel insignificant or abandoned. By trusting in God's timing, strength, and plan, enduring through challenges, finding peace through prayer, surrendering control, and acknowledging God's faithfulness, we can face any storm with confidence. God is at work in our lives, even when we can't see it, and with Him, all things are possible. Through all these examples, we learn that with God, all things are possible. As you continue your journey of faith, remember that God is in control, even when life feels chaotic. Trust in His timing, lean on His strength, and find peace in prayer. Ultimately, by surrendering to God, you will discover the profound joy that comes from trusting Him completely. As you continue your journey of faith, remember to seek God's presence, trust in His promises, and embrace His timing. God will work it out, and as you put your trust in God, He will lead you to a place of peace, strength, and fulfillment.